There are moments in life when the universe unveils its secret plans through what appears to be chance. But in truth, there are no accidents in divine mind. When I found my father's hidden notebook, I knew it was not a coincidence. I was guided by intuition, the inner voice of spirit, to uncover what had been waiting for me all along. Inside, written in his own hand, were numbers, codes, and affirmations, vibrations of faith and expectancy. These were not just figures, they were frequencies, keys to unlock the doors of abundance. My father, guided by divine intelligence, had already spoken these codes into being. They represented the consciousness of wealth, success, and victory over limitation. I realized then that what he written was not meant to be hidden. It was meant to be, as discovered at the appointed time. Sika's spirit whispered, "This is your inheritance, not of money alone, but of faith. Activate it." And so I said aloud, "I am now aligned with the winning vibration. Infinite intelligence reveals me all codes of success, under grace and in perfect ways." Every word spoken in truth carries power. When we speak from faith, the invisible becomes visible. The numbers, the ideas, the opportunities, they begin to move toward us. Divine substance organizes itself according to the pattern of our thought. So I affirm daily, the winning code is already written within my heart. I am one with infinite supply. My path unfolds in perfect timing. Doors open effortlessly. Prosperity flows freely. Every good thing is now manifest under grace. When we awaken to the truth that as the real code is consciousness, we realize that every notebook, every sign, every event is just a mirror of our inner belief. And as I close this sacred chapter, I bless the memory of my father, for his faith lives on in me. The code he carried was never in numbers. It was in the word of power, the vibration of knowing that God is my source, and nothing can be withheld from the one who walks in divine alignment. I now speak the word of victory. I am in tune with infinite supply. I am guided to my rightful success. What is mine by divine right can never be lost. The code works through me now, and my manifestation appears in miraculous ways. There are no lost opportunities in divine mind. What is meant for you cannot be from you, delayed from you, or denied you when you walk by faith and not by fear. Every event, every seeming accident, every strange detour is simply the Spirit guiding you to your rightful inheritance in its own perfect and orderly way. I often say, there is no loss in divine mind, for the infinite cannot forget its own creation. And so, when I was led to that old notebook, dust covered, tucked away, long forgotten, it was not by chance. The steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, and the Lord delights in his way. I had passed that very place countless times before. Yet on that day, something within whispered, "Look there." The small, still voice of intuition, the voice of God in each of us, never shouts, it simply knows. And when we obey that voice, miracles appear in the most ordinary moments. The divine plan always unfolds through guidance, not struggle. One does not have to force what belongs to them. One must simply be still and listen. I believe the Spirit led me to that notebook because the appointed hour had arrived. Divine timing is never late. There is a sacred rhythm to life, and everything comes forth at its proper season. What is yours will be revealed at the precise moment your consciousness is ready to receive it. Had I found that notebook sooner, I might have overlooked its meaning, Had it been later, the opportunity might have passed. But because I was aligned, I heard the call and followed it without resistance. The universe loves a fearless listener. Many souls fail to hear because they are filled with worry, haste, or doubt. But the voice of God cannot be heard through the static of fear. You must still the storm within to hear the calm without. It is written, "Be still and know that I am God." When you quiet the outer clamor of the mind, you awaken the inner guidance that never misses its mark. As I held that notebook, I felt the vibration of something sacred. My father's hand had written those words years ago, yet the ink had not faded in meaning. Divine truth never fades. It vibrates eternally. What was once his inspiration had now become my revelation. Spirit had hidden it for me, waiting until I was spiritually prepared to understand it. You see, divine guidance works like a master weaver, threading every detail of our lives into a perfect tapestry. Even the moments that seem lost, even the things we think we've missed, each is a strand in the pattern of good. What looks like delay is often divine protection. What feels like loss is simply a redirection toward a greater blessing. So, I said to myself that day, nothing is ever lost in divine mind. If something belongs to me, it must return to me. The infinite cannot lose what it has created for my good. I declared that, and I felt a peace descend upon me. The fear of missing out, the fear of time wasted, all of it dissolved. For I knew that divine guidance had orchestrated even the delay. When we live by spiritual law, we understand that every appearance of chance is truly choice. Divine choice. Spirit arranges the right people, places, and circumstances like pieces of a heavenly puzzle. The moment we align our thought with faith, the pieces begin to fall into place. Many people struggle because they do not trust the invisible pattern of life. They want proof before faith, evidence before obedience. But spiritual law says, believe first, and the manifestation follows. The faith that guides us must come before the fact that confirms us. When I trusted that small voice and opened that forgotten notebook, I stepped into a flow far greater than my own understanding. I remember my father once said, "When you cannot see the road ahead, follow the feeling of peace." And now I understand what he meant. The peace that comes from intuition is the confirmation of divine order. When you feel peace about a decision, you are in harmony with your good. When confusion or fear arises, it is not the voice of spirit, it is the echo of doubt. Spirit never confuses. It directs with clarity, simplicity, and love. In that moment, I realized something profound. That notebook was never truly hidden. It was merely held in the invisible realm until I vibrated at the right frequency to see it. Divine guidance always matches vibration. The universe cannot reveal what your consciousness cannot yet recognize. The light appears only when your inner eyes open. So I bless that moment of discovery, not because I found something new, but because I found a reflection of my own alignment. Guidance, you see, is not about being led to something external. It is about awakening to the truth that everything is already within you. When you align with divine mind, you are never lost. You are always being led, from idea to idea, from word to word, from door to door, until you stand in the very place destined for you since before time began. You cannot miss your mark when infinite intelligence holds the bow. And as I read those writings, I understood That this was not merely about my father's notebook. It was about my father's faith. It was about the divine code imprinted through generations, a vibration that could not be erased, only rediscovered. The same spirit that guided him now guides me. The same law that prospered him now prospers me. When you know this truth, fear leaves you entirely. You no longer chase after signs, they begin to chase you. You no longer beg for answers, they arrive gently in your path. The unseen hand of God moves quietly but unmistakably in your favor. And so I affirmed, I am always divinely guided. I am led to my good and perfect ways. I follow the light within and find every hidden blessing revealed. Nothing is ever lost in divine mind, and every right opportunity appears in perfect timing. As I spoke those words, I felt an expansion, as though heaven itself had opened a new door before me. For that is how the law works. The moment you speak truth with conviction, the outer world rearranges to match the inner word. That notebook was not an end. It was a beginning. It was the spark that awakened a deeper realization. That what we call codes, clues, or signs are only the outer garments of divine vibration. They are symbols pointing to the truth. That life itself is a coded message from Spirit, waiting to be interpreted through the eyes of faith. And so I bless divine guidance, for it never fails, it never forgets, and it never misses its mark. It leads us from darkness into light, from limitation into liberty, from the hidden into the revealed. And as I turned the last page, a new thought rose within me, a whisper of the next revelation. Perhaps these codes were never about numbers at all. Perhaps they were about Afra's vibration, about consciousness, about aligning one's very soul with the frequency of abundance. And that, beloved, is where the next chapter begins. The moment I held that notebook in my hands, I could feel its energy before I could even read the words. There was something alive in those pages. A rhythm, a pulse, a hum that seemed to echo through the very air around me. Spirit spoke softly, "These are not numbers, these are vibrations." And instantly, I knew what it meant. The divine never speaks in figures alone. What the human mind calls numbers, Spirit calls frequencies. Each figure, each line, each symbol carries a tone, a vibration, a living current of energy that responds to the consciousness that beholds it. My father's codes were not a sequence to be solved. They were a pattern of power to be felt. He had tuned himself to the vibration of winning, of divine success, of faith made visible. Those pages were not written with ink. They were written with belief. As I studied those markings, I realized something profound. Everything in this universe vibrates. Every word we speak, every thought we think, every emotion we feel, each sends out a wave that moves through the ethers and returns to us multiplied. The law is unchangeable. Whatever vibration you send out, fear attracts confusion. Doubt attracts delay. But faith attracts miracles. I whispered, "Father, you didn't write numbers. You wrote faith." His codes were symbols of consciousness, a kind of spiritual shorthand for victory. He had learned the secret. Thus, the universe responds not to the language of logic, but to the vibration of belief. Thus, the mind may calculate, but the soul knows. When we truly understand this, we no longer chase the outer symbols. We master the inner sound. It is not the digits, but the divine direction behind them that holds the key. Numbers can change, but vibration is eternal. You may not know the winning combination in form, But when you hold the winning frequency in spirit, the physical world must rearrange itself to match. So I asked myself, what vibration am I carrying? For you cannot hold thoughts of lack and receive abundance. You cannot vibrate with fear and manifest faith. The law is exact, and it cannot be deceived. You may speak words of prosperity, but if your inner tone is one of worry, your outer world will echo it. As within, so without. Then I remembered the word. By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned. The words are not merely sounds. They are vibrations charged with faith or fear. Every spoken word sets law in motion. I thought of my father again, how he would speak his affirmations each morning, his voice steady, calm, and sure. Now I understood he was not repeating phrases. He was vibrating truth into form. So I closed my eyes and began to do the same. I said, I am now attuned to the vibration of divine success. I am one with infinite intelligence. The codes of abundance are alive in me. I radiate winning energy, and all things respond in perfect order. As I spoke, something shifted. The air around me seemed to glow. The fear that had once lingered in the corners of my mind began to dissolve, replaced by a deep knowing that I was aligned with the rhythm of the universe. That is how vibration works. It is not imagined. It is felt. The moment you speak truth and believe it, the whole atmosphere changes. People often say, I don't see results yet. But manifestation begins long before the eye can see. The vibration goes out first. It stirs the invisible substance, moves through space, gathers energy, and returns as form. Just as sound waves create patterns in sand, your thoughts create patterns in substance. The outer is only the echo of the inner. I held the notebook closer and thought, Father, you knew this. You didn't search for luck. You tuned to it. For luck is simply alignment with the right vibration. There are no random blessings. There is only the law returning the frequency you send forth. When your vibration says, I expect good, good must appear. When you silently declare, I am worthy, the universe opens its storehouse. So I began to practice the vation of wealth, not through greed, but through gratitude. Gratitude is the highest frequency of all. It says, I already have it, and therefore opens the way for more. I thanked God for every small thing, every breath, every sign. Soon, I noticed how effortlessly new opportunities began to flow. That is how the law moves, silently, naturally, without strain. There is no outer secret apart from the inner one. My father's notebook was a mirror, showing me the reflection of my own consciousness. I saw that each number symbolized a truth: 1 stew for unity with God, 2 for balance, 3 for manifestation, 7 for divine completion. Each carried meaning. But the real message was this: when you are in harmony with the divine, the outer symbols must align with your vibration. It is written, Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The kingdom is not a place, it is a state of consciousness. When you seek that inner harmony, the outer codes reveal themselves. They appear as ideas, as sudden insight, as divine nudges that lead you to the right place at the right time. I began to realize that the so-called winning codes were already alive within me. I did not have to find them, I had to become them. I had to vibrate as success, as abundance, as divine confidence. The notebook was the outer reminder of an inner truth, that every soul holds the key to its own fortune. Then Spirit whispered again, "You are the code." And I felt a great peace. The need to analyze disappeared. The need to control faded away. I simply allowed the vibration of divine intelligence to flow through me. And as I did, ideas began to come. Clear, inspired, powerful. I saw new paths, new connections, new channels through which prosperity could flow. The notebook had done its work. It had awakened the vibration of creation within me. When you live in this state, everything becomes alive. Colors look brighter. Time moves differently. You begin to sense that every atom is aware of your intention. The wind seems to carry whispers of your own thoughts, echoing back blessings. For once you realize that vibration is everything, you understand that nothing is separate from you. You and the infinite are one. And that is why no code can fail you when you live by faith. Faith is the vibration that commands all substance. It is the music of the soul that harmonizes discord and transforms chaos into order. It is the divine tone that calls your good into visibility. So I said, "Thank you, Father, that you reveal all that is mine. I am tuned to the winning vibration. What I seek is seeking me. I am in harmony with success, with wealth, with divine flow. I am a clear channel for your abundance." And as I spoke, I felt the next revelation rise in my spirit. If vibration is the language of the divine, then faith must be its inheritance. I saw clearly that what my father had left me was not just written wisdom, but a living legacy of belief. It was the invisible wealth that no thief can steal and no time can erase. And as that realization deepened, I knew the next law was ready to reveal itself. This faith is the true inheritance, the real treasure hidden in every word, every vibration, and every code of life itself. When the realization dawned that faith itself was my true inheritance, a quiet joy filled my heart. It was as though the heavens had opened and whispered, "You have always possessed the treasure you seek." I understood then that what my father had left me was not simply a record of thoughts or calculations, but the living seed of belief. Faith that moves substance, faith that builds worlds, faith that cannot be shaken by appearance or time. He had walked by faith long before I understood the meaning of it. His notebook, those written codes, were but the outer record of his inner conviction that divine law never fails. The world may look at a man's possessions and call that his legacy, but the wise know that faith is the wealth of the soul. For what good is gold to the one who has no belief in good? What use are numbers to the one who fears lack? Faith is the gold that never tarnishes, the true currency of the universe. So I said aloud, "I inherit faith. I inherit the consciousness of success. I inherit divine confidence." And as I spoke, I felt the power of generations flow through me, not of flesh and blood, but of spirit and word. Faith does not descend through names and papers. It passes through vibration, through consciousness. My father had believed, and because belief is contagious to the receptive soul, his faith became mine the moment I accepted it. That is how the law works. Whatever we recognize as true for another, we claim for ourselves. When you honor the faith in another, you awaken the same pattern within your own heart. So I blessed my father's faith, his courage, his persistence. I blessed every prayer he ever spoke and every dream he ever nurtured. By blessing it, I became it. The blessing and the blessed are one. It was then I realized that faith is not something to possess. It is something to become. To inherit faith is to embody the consciousness of divine assurance, to know beyond reason that the invisible supply is more real than the visible one. The world says, "I'll believe it when I see it," but the soul whispers, "You'll see it when you believe it." A faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, the invisible substance through which all manifestation flows. The scriptures say, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." When you live by faith, you are no longer a beggar at the door of chance. You are the heir of divine supply. I began to meditate on this truth until it filled every corner of my being. I saw clearly that everything I had ever received in life came through faith. Sometimes through my own, sometimes through another's. When my father prayed for me as a child, it was his faith that shielded me. When doors opened that I did not knock upon, it was faith that turned the latch. Faith had been silently working in my favor long, before I knew how to speak the word. So I declared. Faith now flows through my bloodstream. Every cell of my being vibrates with assurance. I am fortified by divine confidence. I no longer hope, I know. A faith does not tremble before circumstance. Faith does not argue with delay. Faith rests, knowing the law is exact and the divine never forgets. Many people speak of faith, but few have practiced it until it becomes their nature. True faith does not flicker when the wind of doubt blows. It glows brighter. For it knows the darkness only proves the light exists. As I thought on this, I began to see how easily people trade away their inheritance. They doubt their good because it has not yet appeared. They question divine timing because it does not follow their calendar. But faith cannot operate in a divided heart. One must stand firm in the knowing that God's plan for me is perfect, and it comes forth now in perfect ways. I recalled the times my father would lose something and calmly say, "It will return in perfect order." And it always did. That was faith in action, the quiet conviction that divine mind cannot lose what belongs to you. He never clung to things, he clung to truth. And truth always brought the things. So now, when appearances try to shake me, I remind myself that I am heir to that same peace. My inheritance is spiritual wealth, an unshakable knowing that nothing real can be lost and nothing good can be withheld. I am not striving to get, I am remembering I already have. Faith does not demand, it allows. It does not grasp, it receives. It is the open channel through which the divine flows freely. And when that flow begins, outer results appear like magic, though they are simply the natural outcome of inner alignment. The notebook, the codes, the mystery, all were outer symbols of a greater truth, that my father had discovered his faith and hidden it in plain sight, waiting for me to awaken to the same power within myself. His words were the lamp, my faith was the flame that lit it. Together, they became illumination. As I walked through the garden that evening, I felt the wind move softly and thought, even the breeze is faith made visible, the invisible air made known by movement. The same is true of life. Faith stirs the unseen until it takes form. Without faith, there can be no manifestation, for manifestation is simply faith expressing itself in material terms. So I said again, I live by faith. I move by faith. I am sustained by faith. Every time I spoke it, the words deepened their roots. The atmosphere around me began to change. People responded differently. Doors opened that had long been closed. The law had heard the vibration of conviction and obeyed. And as I gave thanks for this inheritance, I felt a gentle shift within my awareness. For the first time, I truly understood that the law of expectancy was the very movement of faith in action. Faith believes, expectancy prepares. Faith speaks the word. Expectancy receives the answer. The two are one motion of the same divine rhythm. So I whispered into the night, faith has given me the key, and expectancy shall open the door. I felt the truth of it vibrate through every cell of my being. My father's faith had planted the seed. My expectancy would bring it to blossom. And with that knowing, I stepped forward, ready to live the next revelation. The law that whatever I truly expect with faith must come to pass. For the universe rushes to fulfill the vibration of one who believes without wavering. The next lesson had arrived in perfect order. For divine law always leads from faith to fulfillment. Faith had anchored my soul, but expectancy gave it wings. For faith believes, yet expectancy prepares the room. Faith says, "It is mine," while expectancy sets the table for its arrival. I realized then that these two divine forces are not separate. They are the inhale and exhale of the same holy breath. One declares, the other receives. And so, as my faith deepened, a new energy began to stir within me, the power of expectancy. I woke one morning with a quiet conviction that something wonderful was on its way. There was no sign, no evidence, no outer reason to believe, but my heart knew. It was as though the air itself carried a promise. I walked through my day with a lightness, as though the invisible had already taken shape. That is the secret of expectancy. It makes you act as though your good is already here. And when you act as though, the universe must catch up to your conviction. I began to recall my father's words, now echoing through memory like sacred music. Prepare for your good. Expect it as surely as dawn. He understood that expectancy is not wishing. It is readiness. A soul that expects lack will unconsciously prepare for it. A soul that expects overflow makes space for it. The law can only fill what you have prepared. So I examined my own heart and asked, what am I expecting? For we all live out our expectations, whether of success or failure, love or loss. Expectancy is the magnet of manifestation. It draws to you what you secretly anticipate. One may say, I want abundance, yet inwardly expect delay. And so, delay arrives, not as punishment, but as proof that the law is perfect and impartial. I decided to shift my expectancy entirely. I said, from this moment forward, I expect only miracles. I expect doors to open, paths to flow, and divine timing to unfold with precision. I declared it aloud, and something within me expanded. My thoughts lifted, my emotions harmonized, and I felt the great law of expectancy awaken. When you expect good, your vibration becomes a beacon. The unseen forces of the universe begin to arrange themselves in answer to your certainty. Divine supply rushes toward the soul that is ready to receive. That readiness is not anxiety, it is peace. It is not grasping, it is assurance. To expect is to rest in confidence, knowing that what you have spoken has already been accomplished in spirit. I remember walking down the street that day and seeing everything as alive with potential. The shops, the faces, even the pavement beneath my feet seemed to whisper, anything is possible. That is what expectancy does. It sharpens your vision until you begin to see divine opportunities where before you saw only ordinary moments. The same world becomes a new one when you change the lens of your expectancy. And just as surely, I began to witness little signs of alignment. Unexpected calls, small blessings, sudden insights. They were like golden threads, weaving the unseen into form. The law was moving, responding to my readiness. The vibration of expectancy had opened the gate. Spirit reminded me that expectancy must be disciplined, for the mind tends to wander. The moment you expect something good, fear tries to question it. What if it doesn't happen? But the law is not moved by doubt. It is moved by decision. So I trained my thoughts like a faithful servant. When fear spoke, I answered with truth. My good is certain. Divine supply cannot fail. What belongs to me comes swiftly and easily under grace. Each time I affirmed it, I felt the doors of my consciousness swing wider. Expectancy was not about waiting. It was about welcoming. Waiting holds tension, welcoming holds peace. The one who expects from spirit is not restless. They are serene, knowing that the invisible is already arranging itself in their favor. I began to notice how expectancy changes your very aura. People sense it. They respond differently. Opportunities recognize you. When you expect success, you carry an atmosphere that invites it. The world mirrors your anticipation. If you expect favor, favor follows you. If you expect miracles, miracles meet you halfway. The scriptures say, according to your faith be it unto you. But I say, according to your expectancy be it revealed. For expectancy is faith in motion. It is the practical expression of belief. When you expect a harvest, you till the soil. When you expect rain, you bring the vessel. When you expect divine increase, you prepare space for the overflow. So I began to prepare my life for the abundance I had spoken of. I cleared old clutter, both physical and emotional. For spirit cannot fill a vessel already full of doubt. I forgave where bitterness lingered, for resentment blocks the flow. I blessed what I had, knowing gratitude multiplies it. I walked each day as though divine appointment awaited me around every corner. And it did. Soon, I saw how perfectly expectancy aligns with divine order. Every prayer, every affirmation, every thought of faith sets the law in motion. But expectancy keeps the channel open until manifestation appears. Many give up too soon. They sow but never watch for the sprout. Yet the one who expects remains steady, and in that steadiness, the invisible ripens into form. Expectancy has no timeline. It knows that delay is only divine incubation. What you have asked for is already yours in the unseen, awaiting only your unwavering conviction to bring it forth. So I spoke each morning. Today, I expect the perfect manifestation of every right desire. I expect divine surprises. I expect blessings beyond imagination, for the universe delights in the one who delights in good. And so it was. Each day began to unfold like a dance of divine timing. Meetings occurred by seeming accident that were anything but accidental. Messages came at the perfect moment. Every need was supplied before it could be spoken. The more I expected, the more the law responded, until I lived in a rhythm of effortless manifestation. Then one evening, as I reflected on the wonder of this law, another realization dawned. Expectancy had done more than open doors. It had changed me. I was no longer striving to receive. I had become the open channel itself. I was no longer seeking abundance. I was vibrating as abundance. The expectancy that began as faith in something external had become an inner state of being. And in that stillness, Spirit whispered again. You have unlocked every door, because you have become the key. I understood then that the law of expectancy is the bridge between faith and embodiment. When faith believes and expectancy prepares, manifestation must appear. The universe cannot resist the vibration of readiness. And with that knowing, a new revelation began to form within me. If I am the key, then I must be the living code itself, the divine pattern through which infinite abundance expresses. The realization was near, shimmering on the horizon. I am the living code of abundance, the embodiment of the truth I once sought in words and symbols. The next chapter was already waiting to unfold. The moment that truth illuminated my heart. I am the living code of abundance. The world itself seemed to shift. The air grew lighter, the silence deeper, and everything around me pulsed with a quiet knowing. It was as though every leaf, every sound, every ray of light was whispering, "Yes, this is so." The truth did not arrive as an idea to be learned, but as a revelation to be remembered. For Spirit does not teach us what we do not know. It reminds us of what has been true from the beginning. I saw clearly that all along, I had been searching for signs, for words, for keys, and for codes outside myself. Yet the real code had been written in the language of my soul. The same intelligence that designed the stars and numbered the hairs on my head had already inscribed within me the pattern of divine success. I had only to awaken to it. The notebook, my father's wisdom, the affirmations, the numbers. They were all mirrors pointing back to infinite design within my own being. For man is not separate from the law he studies. He is the instrument through which it plays its melody. The universe moves through him as easily as breath, if only he ceases to resist. When I realized this, I no longer sought to decode life. I became the vibration of the code itself. My words, my thoughts, my emotions, all were aligned to the frequency of infinite abundance. I spoke softly into the stillness. I am the code. I am the law made visible. I am the living word through which divine supply flows. And at that instant, I felt the power of those words surge through me. It was not ego that spoke. It was recognition. For the soul that knows its oneness with the infinite is humble, yet mighty. It does not boast, it radiates. Abundance is not a thing to have, but a state to embody. It is the breath of spirit expressing through form. When we vibrate as abundance, we draw to ourselves whatever corresponds to that rhythm. Health, wealth, peace, love, and opportunity. Life rearranges itself to reflect the image we hold within. I no longer asked, "When will my good come?" I began to say, "My good is now manifesting through me." That is the secret of manifestation. You do not chase it, you channel it. The code of abundance is not a formula of the mind. It is a frequency of the heart. The heart that is open, grateful, and fearless becomes the passage through which divine supply pours itself into the world. So I began to live each moment as though divine wealth were breathing through me. I thanked God for every small provision, every smile, every idea, every act of grace. Gratitude polished the channel until it gleamed. And as I gave thanks, new supply flowed effortlessly. For gratitude is the motion of increase. It tells the universe, I am ready for more. But each thought I held became a command to the invisible. If I thought of lack, I dimmed my light. If I thought of plenty, I expanded the field, so I guarded my words as treasures. I spoke only of abundance, joy, and divine order. I said, I am rich with ideas, overflowing with divine substance. Ever-flowing need comes to me quickly and easily, under grace and in perfect ways. And so it was. The law responded, as it always does, to the vibration of my conviction. Divine opportunities appeared like golden threads leading me from one good to another. I met people who carried the next piece of the plan. I found myself in the right place at the right time, saying the right words to the right souls. Nothing was forced. Everything flowed. That is how the code works. It is effortless once you become it. I saw then that the greatest power lies in knowing you are one with infinite supply. No separation, no struggle, no begging or pleading, just recognition. The ocean does not beg the tide to rise. It simply expands to meet it. Likewise, the soul that knows its divine inheritance does not plead for provision. It simply expands to receive. I said to myself, I am an open channel for divine prosperity. The river of wealth flows through me, blessing everyone it touches. And truly I saw that abundance is not something to hoard, but something to circulate. The more freely I gave, whether a word, a smile, or a gift, the more swiftly the current returned multiplied. Giving and receiving are one motion of the same spiritual law. To live as the code is to trust that nothing good can be withheld. The universe is exact. It cannot contradict the vibration you maintain. If you live in fear, you block the current. If you live in faith, you ride its wave. And so, I made faith my constant companion. I walked with assurance, even in silence. I looked at each challenge and said, "This too shall reveal my good." And every time I spoke those words, the vibration within me grew stronger. I began to sense that my very presence could shift energy in a room. Not through effort, but through alignment. For the one who lives by divine law becomes a living blessing. Their aura carries peace, their words carry power. They need not persuade, they radiate. Soon, it became clear that the true meaning of the code was not about money or luck. It was about mastery of consciousness. To live as the code is to live from the Christ within, the divine pattern of perfection in every soul. When you vibrate at that level, you are no longer a seeker. You are a creator in full cooperation with infinite intelligence. I began to bless everything and everyone as an expression of that same divine pattern. I looked upon others not as competitors, but as fellow manifestations of the same source. Their success did not diminish mine. It confirmed it. For when one awakens to abundance, it raises the vibration for all. At last I understood what my father's hidden notebook truly represented. It was the silent record of a soul discovering his divinity, and now that divinity was awakened in me. The codes had fulfilled their purpose. The student had become the vibration of the lesson itself. And so I stood still, feeling the peace of completion, and whispered, I am the code. I am the abundance. I am the law fulfilled. In that stillness, I could feel Spirit preparing the next revelation, for divine learning never ends. The law of life is expansion. Just as the flower unfolds petal by petal, so the soul reveals truth layer by layer. And I knew as I stood bathed in that holy silence, that the next movement of divine unfoldment would carry me even higher, to the realization that when one fully embodies the code of abundance, one becomes a living channel for others to awaken as well. The current of prosperity flows outward endlessly, touching every receptive heart. For that is the final truth of divine manifestation. What you become, you bless the world with. And as you bless, you multiply. And as you multiply, you fulfill the law of life itself, ever expanding good under grace and in perfect ways. And so, beloved, we come to the still point, the place where the word becomes flesh, where the unseen takes form. All that has been spoken, all that has been revealed, brings us to this holy realization. The code was never something to find, it was something to remember. The Father's hidden notebook, the golden numbers, the guiding words, all were symbols of the infinite whispering. You already are what you seek. In the silence of faith, every code is unlocked. In the stillness of trust, every door stands open. For when the heart rests in divine knowing, the outer world obeys. There is no resistance, no delay, only perfect alignment with infinite intelligence. And in that alignment, every good thing hastens to appear. I now declare that I live by divine design, guided by divine mind, prospered by divine love. The Spirit of truth writes through me daily, inscribing new pages of beauty, abundance, and peace upon the canvas of my life. I need not search for signs, for I have become the sign, the living proof that God's promises are true. Each breath I take is an affirmation of divine order. Each thought I think is a command to substance to form in harmony. I walk not by sight, but by inner vision, knowing that what I dare to imagine in faith must manifest in form. For the law cannot fail. It fulfills itself through the consciousness that believes. The code lives on, not in the pages of a notebook, but in the rhythm of my heart. It hums softly through my days, under grace and in perfect ways. It sings there every step I take. Nothing can be withheld from me, that is mine by divine right. And it echoes through eternity. His I and the Father are one, and so I bless this revelation and release it into the universal flow. It returns multiplied, expanding, and eternal. I am the code of abundance made manifest. I am the word of power fulfilled. I am the channel through which divine wealth, peace, and joy flow freely to all who are ready to receive. For the law of life is ever unfolding, ever increasing, ever blessing. And I now rest in the peace of completion. Knowing this truth, the game is finished. The victory is won. The supply is infinite, and I am one with it forever.